Well, good evening. Ready to jump back into our Joseph narrative this evening. Really, what we do now is finish up the book of Genesis. We've spent a great deal of time on Genesis, and there's a reason for that. It's the book of beginnings. It answers a lot of the important questions that set up the rest of the Old Testament, in particular, the whole story of the Bible. And so a lot of it does require a lot of attention that's not going to necessarily be spent the same amount of attention on every narrative moving forward. But these are important to make sure that we have a good grasp of what happens, where all of this begins. And last week we were able to make it about midway through the story, through Joseph's story, and we ended up with Joseph where? In what position? What was that? What did you say, Joshua? Chief? Is that what you said? Okay, yes, very good. All right, so if you recall, last week, Joseph was brought out of the prison, and he was asked to interpret Pharaoh's dreams. He does so. Says, what you need to do is find somebody that you can trust, who's industrious, somebody who'd be good to handle the food, the abundance over the next 7 years, so that when 7 years of famine come, there's food to be had. And the Pharaoh said, you realize that there's nobody else that we can trust to do that besides you, right? I mean, out of everybody, who better than the only person who could tell me what these dreams meant? You've shown yourself to be this. So he is raised up to a head position. Like Joshua said, he's raised up to a level to where he's over everything in Egypt except for Pharaoh himself. It's a position that he's found himself in time and again. And we concluded, as he's in his new position and he's settling in, he gets married, has a couple kids, and what are the names of those children? Okay, so Manasseh and Ephraim, right? I've heard it both ways. That being the case, what do these names mean? Manasseh has to do with what? All right, forgetting, right? So I'm just going to put forget there. And Ephraim has to do with, all right, being fruitful. Why? What's the significance of these names? Do you just like how they sound? I mean, that's why we picked our kids' names, right? What's the significance of Manasseh? Yeah, hold on 1 second, Jeff. Yeah, what you got?
Due to his relationship with his brothers, he wanted to be, and his family, he wanted to forget what had happened in the past.
All right, very good. Yeah, God has allowed me to forget. Remember when he was in the prison, he had asked the cupbearer, please remember me. I shouldn't be here. I was sold as a Hebrew slave. You get this feeling that he's still longing for home, still longing to be back there. And it's almost like he's waiting to some degree for his father to come, break him out of this prison, bring him home. It's not happening. By this point, he's brought out of the pit. He's elevated to this great position. He now has a wife. They have a child. He has a brand new life. And he's basically said, I have severed myself from that past life. God has now put me in a position where I'm actually able to forget my father, my brothers, everybody behind. It's all gone. He's put it in a compartment in his mind. He's built a concrete wall or brick wall. I guess they did have bricks, right? So he's put a brick wall up, walled it in. He doesn't think about it anymore. He was able to forget. And now, with his second child, he focuses on what?
Moving forward.
All right, how fruitful he is moving forward. Today we might say he might name his child, instead of fruitful, he might name him Shades, because the future's so bright, he's going to wear shades, right? And that type of connection. That's what this is. This is a looking forward. I'm going to be fruitful. My family's going to be fruitful. We're going to have an abundance in the land of Egypt. And so he's settling into a new place, a new home, a new world, a new everything, and he's forgotten everything that was behind him. And we could pull the curtain on the story here, and we might feel good about the story of Joseph, right? This guy who's been through everything, he's been through the worst of it all, and he comes out on top, and you have your winning story. This is it. This is good. We're finished, right? Except, what happens?
Family shows back up.
Yeah. He thought he'd forgotten, but there are other plans in place. So that's where we pick up then tonight as we move forward into chapter 42. And hopefully we'll be able, we'll easily be able to cover, should be easily be able to cover the rest of this. So as Joseph's brothers come to Egypt, why do Joseph's brothers come to Egypt? All right, because there's a famine, right? I don't, do I need to draw a map up here for you to know that Egypt's about here and Israel's right here? They're not very far away at all. And so the land of Palestine that's right there, or Canaan or whatever, it's really close. They're affected by the exact same famine. Now, Joseph's old life comes to Egypt. What's interesting about about that? What about Joseph? What does Joseph not do? Okay, well, I'm talking before they even come down to Egypt. We mentioned it last week. What does Joseph not do? His family comes down here, but he what?
Never goes up there.
He never goes up there. Now, I think that's telling. This is just I'm further trying to demonstrate this idea of his forgetting his past life. He's in a position he can do just about anything he wants. And it's not that far away. It's not like he can tell the Pharaoh, hey, you know what? I'd love to see my father again. Can I take a couple months or whatever? And yeah, or weeks or however long. No big deal. Just go on up there and see him. He never does. He's not the one that goes to them. They are the ones who come to him. So the famine hits, and Jacob finds out there's grain for sale in Egypt. And so he sends just about everybody that he can of his sons to go down and get some food. Why doesn't he send all of them? All right, he doesn't want to, in case you didn't hear Lucy, I'm sure you didn't, I'm going to repeat word for word. He doesn't want to lose the other one. All right, that's significant, isn't it? The other one. What other one? All right, yeah, I think I heard someone say Benjamin. Why is Benjamin significant? Okay, Josie said he's Rachel's, but does he say that's why he's significant? All right, because he was the son of his old age, right? Note that he never says these are Rachel's children, and they're significant because they are the children of the one that I loved. He says these are the sons of my old age. And that's what makes them significant through the Joseph narrative. And I love the way that Lucy really said that, the other one, because that's the way that he really thinks of them. That he has these 10 sons, but there are 2 that he's had that are the important ones to him. And he's already lost one, and now he's concerned about the other. So the other one is stuck here at home, and the 10 go to buy some grain, and they come into the land. And as Connie said just a second ago, Connie, you remember what you said a second ago?
He didn't reveal himself.
Okay. Yeah, he doesn't reveal himself to them. Does he know who they are? All right, he recognizes them. Do they recognize him? No. Why not? All right, he was 17 years old when he got sold into slavery. A few things have changed since then, right? He's now, well into his manhood. Remember verse 46? Chapter 41, verse 46, Joseph was 30 years old when he entered into the service of Pharaoh. So, that's a decent difference. Why else do you think they wouldn't recognize him, though? Yeah, Kelly?
Wrong place, wrong time.
All right, was your mic on there? Try it again.
Wrong place, wrong time.
There we go.
So there's times where I think I know somebody, but I'm not sure because it's not where I expect them to be.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I don't know if there's any truth to it, but in the movies, he's always got like Egyptian makeup on.
Oh, he's got what?
Egyptian makeup on because he's like a Egyptian guy now. I don't know.
All right. Now, there is a lot to that, as far as what he would look at. Wrong place, wrong time. Let's focus on that. Connie, what were you going to say?
They really expected him to be dead.
Yeah. I think that's really important to remember. In their minds, he died a long time ago. They didn't sell him into slavery in order to rise through the ranks to become an actual Egyptian, right? He was sold into slavery to die, and to die quickly. In their minds, Joseph has been dead for a long time, and even if they know in the back of their minds that he might be alive somewhere, possibly, maybe, could happen, they've been living now for, at the very least, 13 plus years, right? Because you've got the 7 years of plenty, so you're around 20 years at that point, and then maybe give another year or so of the famine before they need to go down there and get food. It's been a long time. By this point, you live with that information in your head. You're like, yeah, he's dead by now. And even if you say, well, maybe he might still be alive somewhere, this goes to what Kelly is saying, is that being alive somewhere going to be the official who is in charge of everything that's going on with the famine selling of the grain and stuff? I mean, there's no possible way, right, Jeff?
Well, they had already written off his dream that he talks about,
Yeah.
and when he's younger, and they figured, okay, that whole thing is it's just a story. They don't. I mean, at this point, they don't understand the story.
Well, yeah, and remember, they thought that they had thwarted it. When they saw him coming from a distance, they said, here comes that dreamer. Let's kill him off, and then we'll see what happens to those dreams. In their minds, yeah, they've killed the dreams. Those were not prophetic in any kind of a way. They have done those in. And so, yeah, there's nothing, I don't think there's any way that they could possibly have looked at Joseph and said, is that Joseph right there? I mean, their mind would not allow that connection to be made. And as Kelly said, what's he dressed like now? He is a very, very wealthy Egyptian. He has royal clothing. He is royalty. In fact, if you are the type of individual from out of town, you're coming in and you're going to get some grain, and you just want to come, get grain, and then get home to your families, what's the last thing that you want to do? Okay, read my mind. What's the last thing I would think that you would want to do?
Must meet with the big guy.
Okay. Yes, further explain. You got your mic coming. All right. Keep on going.
Well, and because they just want to get done, get back home.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to have any interaction. They just want to get what they have to do and go back home to Dad. That's what their whole focus is.
Yeah. And the last thing you want to do is draw attention to yourself, right? You know, put a flag up that says, hey, you need to pay attention to us. Do something about us. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to spend time looking at royalty in the eye. Right? I mean, that's an aggressive thing. We understand that. You know, because when I'm looking at you all right now, making eye contact, I'm being very aggressive about that, right? But no, of course not. But in that scenario, it is something that you would not want to do. Yeah, Ryan?
That's exactly what I was just going to point out. Verse 6 says they bowed their heads to the ground. It almost makes it sound like they don't even really look at him more than just a brief glance and realize that he's somebody that needs that respect. And so they may have not even gotten a good enough look at him to even recognize any face, whether it's their brother or not.
Yep. Yeah. And Ryan, that's exactly right. You see the way that they bow themselves down to the ground, and there's a manner of respect. I think, is that the word you use, Ryan? I think, you know, just a manner of respect towards the one who is in charge, that you're not going to do anything to challenge that individual, like staring at them.
They have no concept that they're fulfilling the dream.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right now, because of how they're acting, but they're actually fulfilling it.
Yeah, exactly. And the text points that out. They bow down before him, and it's like Joseph's like, oh yeah, I remember those dreams. You know, here it is. This is the very fulfillment of what Jeff said a minute ago, what they had kind of said, there's no chance that this could happen. So all of this is happening very quickly. You know, he's there before them. They come. He recognizes them. They don't recognize him. And immediately, he challenges them. The last thing that you want to do is draw the wrong attention to yourself. That's exactly what happens. You know, and if you want to put yourself into a scenario, put yourself into the scenario of these brothers and the way that they would feel at this moment where the guy in charge singles them out and calls them what? Calls them spies. He's like, oh, well, I see what y'all are. Y'all are a bunch of people coming in to spy out our defenses. You know, you're looking at the lay of the land. You're wanting to know if you can take us over. All right. Can you imagine being one of those brothers at this moment? Where did that come from? What about us gives off this feeling that we're spies? They're like, no, we just want to get food and get back home to our father. He's like, oh, okay, well, tell me about this. You know, and he gets out of him that the father is still living, and also what? What else did they tell him that's pertinent to the story? Okay, well, yes, he finds out that they believe that Joseph has died, right? Because that's one of the things that's told. And what else? All right, and that he has another brother, they have another brother, Benjamin. And it's like, oh, all right. Well, let's do this. Why don't you send someone back to get your brother, and I'm going to put the rest of y'all in jail, and then when he comes back, then we'll let you free. Are they willing to do that? No. In fact, they stay in jail, all of them, for how many days? For 3 days. Until finally, he's like, okay, I tell you what, I'll let all of y'all go back, but I'm going to keep one here until you bring back Benjamin, or the other brother. Until you bring back your other brother, present him before me, and then I'll know that you're telling the truth. Who gets left behind? All right, Simeon gets left behind, and then the rest of them are free to go home. What's wrong with their sacks as they're returning home? What's that? Well, not yet. That will come. Okay. All the money that was supposed to have been spent on the grain is in their bags, which means that they have just what? They have just stolen all their grain. Now, they were in trouble before, they're still in trouble, and now they're thieves as far as the Egyptians are concerned. Can you feel them maybe feeling a little warm around the collar at this point? So they head home, and what do they tell their father? Not a trick question here. Yeah, Kelly?
That they got some food but had to leave their brother, and they told them the story that they had to bring Benjamin back, and they also told them about their money being in the tops of their sacks, and so they were like, we don't know what to do, so they ate up all the food, and then.
Well, even before that, what did they say to their father? What's that? Okay. Yeah, and that's the way that they viewed Joseph, as the Lord of their country. But you get down, chapter 42, verse 36, Jacob, their father, said, you have bereaved me of my children, right? First of all, who is no more? All right, Joseph is no more, and Simeon is no more, and now you would take Benjamin? In other words, they told him what? Again, not a trick question. What did they have to tell him for him to know this? Okay, we need to take Benjamin back, right? What did they tell him? They told him, hey, you know what? Simeon's up there, but don't worry. All we have to do is just take Benjamin back to Egypt, present Benjamin to the guy, and when we do that, he will let everybody go, including Simeon, right? I mean, that he basically says that's all we need to do. And what's Jacob's response? He's like, no. You've already, Joseph's already gone. And what does he say about Simeon? Simeon's gone too. Is Simeon gone? No. All he has to do is just Benjamin. But as far as Jacob's concerned, if you're going to put two people out there, if it's going to be Simeon or Benjamin, which one? Which one's he keep? He's going to keep Benjamin, every day of the week, twice on Sunday, right? It does not matter at all about Simeon because he doesn't want to risk Benjamin. And so he says, forget this. You get Jacob in the Woe Is Me award going on. Why does all this happen to me? Verse 38, he said, my son shall not go with you, for his brother is dead, and he is what? All right, he is the only one that I have left. This goes to what Lucy was saying earlier, right? He's saying this to 10 brothers, 10 children of his, and he's like, yeah, one's gone, and the only other one that counts, he's the only one that I've got left. Yeah, Dad of the Year award, first of all. But at the same time, I think what you're seeing is more of the grief that he's feeling. This emotional trauma from the loss of Joseph and the way that he was lost. And he's like, no, forget it. We're not risking it. Well, eventually, Kelly said the food runs out. And what do they have? Oh, I almost skipped over it. Who is it that stands up in verse 37? All right, Reuben. Here we hear from Reuben again. Reuben stands up and says, I tell you what, Dad, I'll take him. And if anything happens to Benjamin, you can do what? You can kill my 2 sons as a restitution. I think we're not supposed to see this as a positive thing. Reuben, by the way, is not supposed to, ever since the whole thing with Bilhah, I think it was Bilhah. I think that was the one. It was either Zilpah or Bilhah. I think it was Bilhah. Ever since that, moving forward, I think you see Reuben as someone who is grasping at straws, trying to scramble his way back into Jacob's good graces, and he messes it up time and time again. And here he's like, I tell you what, if something happens to Benjamin, you can kill your 2 grandchildren. What kind of a statement is that? And you're not supposed to see that, I don't think, favorably. But you get into the next chapter, again, you have this phrase, the famine was severe in the land. They'd eaten all the grain, and they needed to go back. And he tells them, go again. Who stands up this time? 43, verse 3. All right, this time it's Judah. And Judah, by the way, is the one who stood up earlier in the story and said what? And by earlier in the story, weeks ago. Oh, you guys forgotten this already? Weeks for us. Yeah, where did Judah stand up before? Ryan? Okay, he said don't kill him, but what instead?
Sell him.
Okay, say it into the mic there.
Sell him.
Yeah, remember Judah's the one that stood up and said, hey guys, if we want to kill him off, we don't have to kill him off ourselves. Let's sell him to these guys. Let them kill him off for us, and we'll get a little coin in our pocket on the side. That sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Judah's the ringleader of the ones who were trying to put him to death. You move on in the story, and by the way, there's a whole chapter that's inserted in this narrative. It's an entire chapter about whom? It's about Judah. It's not Joseph's story. When you go back, chapter 38 is between the Joseph narrative and then picking back up with Joseph in Egypt. Chapter 38 is all about Judah, where Judah and his story is not very favorable. And yet, in the end, remember, that's that story. Well, we don't need to go into it. We'll talk about it at some point, I'm sure, but that'll derail us from our conversation. But you see a transition that begins to happen with Judah, I think, in that story. And then now, Judah's going to be one of the main characters. In fact, I've heard people say before that if you want to talk about who the protagonist of this narrative really is, that is the one who goes through the greatest journey of growth and change, Judah's your guy. So follow Judah as well as Joseph through this. Judah stands up and says, look, we cannot go get food unless Benjamin's with us. Now, this is a son, a grown son. I mean, this is someone who's well into his middle ages by now, who is talking to a father who is being unreasonable. And I don't know if any of y'all have ever had those moments where you have talked to parents who were unreasonable. That's what this picture is. Some of you guys are thinking, I'm that parent now who's unreasonable, right? But no, this is that son who says to his father, look, we can't just go and get the food without Benjamin. And so Judah is the one who says in verse 8, send the boy with me. We will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we, you, and also our little ones, and I will pledge of his safety. From my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. That's different from what Reuben said, isn't it? Reuben is, if anything happens to him, you can kill 2 of my kids. Judah stands up and he says, look, I will take this blame personally upon myself. There's no, someone's going to die in his place, substitutionary atonement. There's nothing. He just says, trust me, Father. Trust me. I will bear the responsibility. I will own up to it. I will do whatever it is that needs to be done. But he ends, look, if we hadn't delayed, we could have been there and back twice already. It's that speaking to an unreasonable father. And then his father says, if it must be so, then do this. If we were doing a deep dive into this story and looking at it, at this point, I would have you look at chapter 43 and verse 11, and look at all of the things that they put in, that they take on top of doubling the money, and remind you that if we'd been doing a deep dive, we would have talked about all of these things as the things that Joseph traveled with down to Egypt. These are the very things that those traders traded. And so the things that they are giving as a gift to Joseph are the very things that he traveled to Egypt with so many years ago. And so you kind of see these little connections. But we're not going deeply into it, so I'm not going to worry about mentioning or going through all of that. They took the extra money, they come down, and they have Benjamin with them. So we go down, verse 16. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the steward of his house, bring the men into the house, slaughter an animal, make ready, for the men are to dine with me at noon. And the man did not, the man did as Joseph told him, brought the men to Joseph's house, but they were afraid because they were brought to the house. And now they're like, oh, great. They think we're thieves, that we stole all of this. Why does he want him in the house? In their minds, why do they think that Joseph wants them in his house? What's that? Well, maybe not to kill him, but we're going down the right path, right? Yeah, Kathy?
They are talking about themselves. They think, well, maybe he thinks we stole that silver, and so he's going to get us in there and kill us all, or overpower us, it says.
Okay, yeah, not necessarily kill, but once they're in the house, they don't have a way back out. And this guy is powerful enough, he can just seize them and make them his servants, and they're stuck. And they have no recourse. Once they're brought into the house, and so they're like, well, this is all about it. They try to quickly tell him, look, we have the money, we brought some extra gifts, we give all of this. And yet they find, verse 23, he says, peace, do not be afraid. Your God, the God of your father, put the treasure in the sacks for you. I received the money. You're not thieves. We don't look at you as thieves. And then they had this meal. So verse 26, Joseph came home, brought him into the house. They brought the present to him. Verse 27, he inquired about the welfare. They said, is your father well? The old man of you spoke, is he still alive? They said, your servant, our father, is well. He's still alive. They bowed their heads. They prostrated themselves. And this is, going back to what Ryan was saying earlier, this relationship that they had where they wouldn't even look at him. Verse 29, he lifted up his eyes. He saw his brother Benjamin. His mother's son said, is this your youngest brother of whom you spoke to me? God be gracious to you, my son. And Joseph hurried out, for his compassion grew warm for his brother, and he sought a place to weep. And he entered his chamber, and he wept there. Why? Okay, he's overcome with emotion, but okay, so he saw his brother. Why does this cause him to have to run out of the room and find an empty room somewhere to weep? Yeah, Kelly?
These two were the little buddies that played together, and they ran around the house, and they were Dad's favorites. And the big brothers were kind of almost the enemies in their little world.
Okay.
And now his brother's back. Of the 11 brothers, this is the one he cares about. This is the one he wanted to see besides his dad.
Yeah. All right. But I mean, why emotion to that extent? All right. Jonathan just said because emotion to that extent had been held back for so long. This is the emotion that he forgot, that he built a wall around, that's been repressed for 20 years now or so, or however long it's been. That stuff that he shoved into a corner of his brain, and he built a wall. And now what's happening? But what's happening to that wall? That wall is getting torn down because he's seeing his brother right here. The one, that had the relationship that Kelly said. I think, for those who've been through traumatic experiences, and people who've talked about having traumatic experiences where they're able to forget what it is that they went through, something in their brain, kind of walls it up and doesn't allow them to remember or experience it. For those people, when someone, a psychiatrist or somebody, finds a way to get into that part of their brain and bring it out, the emotions are overwhelming. This isn't just him being sad or, tears of joy or something. This is an emotional response from a person who psychologically has walled up the past, and the past, that wall has now broken down, and it is flooding out. And he's having to find a way to deal with it. This is a psychological response that's taking place right here. And yeah, he's going to weep, and he's going to weep a lot through the rest of this story. You're going to see him, almost every time we turn around, he's weeping because he's dealing with repressed trauma, various things that are going on, everything, what he wanted, hope, and what he was able to forget, and all of that is crashing in his psyche once again. So he sees Benjamin, they eat, and as they're eating together, remember, they're astonished, first of all, that they're all placed properly by age. It's one of those things where that's weird. Okay. But the real tidbit is verse 34. What happens in verse 34 as they're eating? Yeah. Benjamin's portion is 5 times more than anyone else's. Why would Joseph do that? Okay, because he's his favorite, perhaps. Yeah, blood brother. Is there another reason maybe he might do that? Maybe. Although I think there's a more nefarious purpose to it than trying to give them a clue. Well, he is definitely the youngest. Yeah, Josie? Okay, trying to build favor, perhaps, Mike.
Maybe he's testing them to see if they're still a jealous bunch of evildoers.
Yeah. What were Joseph's brothers like to him when he received favoritism from his father? Jealous? I think I heard someone say jealous. To the point that they couldn't even what? Yeah. They couldn't have a civil conversation with him because they hated him and they hated the way that their father gave him special treatment. What do you think, as Joseph's been gone all this time, what do you think Joseph is pretty confident of, even though he's kind of forgotten this? He's now remembering, right? He's probably pretty confident. How is Benjamin being treated back home? All right, the same way that he was. Which means he's wondering, are these brothers the same jerks that they were before to him? Are they treating Benjamin the same way that they treated him? How does he find that out? Yeah, he finds out by treating Benjamin the way that he assumes his father's treating Benjamin, right? Let's give Benjamin 5 times the portion, and let's see how those brothers react. Let's watch them. I think what Mike said is absolutely. This is a test. Everything that we're going to look at through the rest of this story, these are all tests, and these are tests to determine, are these brothers the exact same people that they were to me? And so they gave him 5 times as much, and what was the reaction of the brothers? Say that again. They drank and they were merry with him. Did they treat him the same way that they treated Joseph? No. Something's different. Something's changed. That's what Joseph is trying to figure out. Okay, I went too far here. Hold on a second. So they ate and they drank and they were merry with him. So the tests continue. We come into chapter 44, and this is where he has, and Connie referred to this earlier, has them take their bags, and now not only do they get their stuff back, but what else is in these bags? All right, a silver cup. It's the one that Joseph uses for divination, and it's a conversation we're not going to have at the moment about whether he could practice divination or not. Is that okay? Was it wrong? Whatever the case is, at that moment in time, it's what he did. So he used this cup, apparently, for divination purposes, is the way that it's shown, and sends them away with it, and then he sends his servant. By the way, whose bag did they put it in again? Put it into Benjamin's bag. Yeah. Jan said, I wonder why they didn't check their bags this time. Let's just take a look at them and make sure. It's a good question. I have no idea. But at least for the narrative to work, they don't. They travel out, and then the individual, the steward, comes, catches up with them, and he's like, dude, seriously, why did you guys take the cup? And they're like, we didn't take the cup. And he's like, yes, you did. And so they're like, all right, if anybody took the cup, we will pay for this. What is it that they say, though? Who's responsible? If they find the cup, who's going to be responsible? All right, well, yeah, the one who has the cup, right? We're in chapter 44. Let's see, verse 9, whichever of your servants is found with it shall die. We also will be my Lord's servants. They're like, if any of us took the cup, we will pay big time for it. They're willing to do that. They each lowered their sack. It's found in Benjamin's sack. What's the reaction of the brothers in verse 13? They tore their clothes, and then what? All right, who? Who returned to the city? Who? Every one of them loaded up their donkey, and they went back to the city. Why is that one important? What's the test here, Mike? Hold on. We'll let Kelly get to you there.
They stuck with him because they didn't have to. He said, no, the one that is got the cup, we'll take him. The rest of you will be blameless. Mm-hmm. So they stepped up to the plate and said, no, if he goes back, we go back.
Yeah.
Which is a huge change of heart.
Okay, it's a huge change of heart. Why do you say that? What are we comparing this moment to? We're supposed to make a comparison. This is a one-to-one comparison with another moment in our story. What moment was that? When they sold Joseph into slavery. When all the brothers surround the one favored child, and they have an opportunity to get that one out of the way so that they are able to return home without him. That's what they did to Joseph, right? What is the scenario that Joseph has now created for them? And this time, it's legitimate. They don't even have to lie. They don't have to dip a coat into blood or do anything like that. They don't have to do anything except for tell the truth and say, hey, here's your favored son, the one that we hate, that we're wanting to get rid of. Here's what happened to him. We're able to return home without him and get him out of our lives. Can you see the one-to-one comparison right here? Joseph is setting up for them exactly what they did to him. Why? Have they changed? Because his brothers from 20 plus years ago, that's all it would have taken. They'd be like, woo, take him. Yes, nice. We're done with him. You know, let me give him a little kick on the way out. See ya, right? Is that how they react now? No, not at all. To a man, every one of them says, we're not going home unless he's with us. And so they go back, and they go back before Joseph now. And so verse 14, when Judah and his brothers, now it's not just the brothers anymore. Remember I said, watch Judah. Now it's Judah and the brothers. When Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, he was still there. They fell before him, and Joseph said to them, what have you done? Did you not know that a man like me is able to practice divination? In other words, didn't you know that I would know that you did this? Who speaks up? It's Judah. Judah says, what can we say? What can we speak? What can we do to clear ourselves? God has found out the guilt of your servants. Behold, we are my Lord's servants. We and he also, in whose hand the cup has been found. But he said, far be it from me that I should do so. You know, Joseph is like, only the man in whose hand the cup was found will be my servant. As for you, go in peace to your father. You know, he's trying again. They didn't do it out there, but he's saying right now, look, dude, seriously, just go. Just leave him. This is your chance. This is your opportunity right now. You can go to your father. And Judah went up to him and said, my Lord, please, let your servant speak a word in my Lord's ears. Let your anger not burn against your servant, for you are like Pharaoh himself. And he appeals to him. He says, do you have a father? Do you have a brother? You know, and it says, we have a father, an old man, a young brother, the child of his old age. His brother is dead. He alone is left of his mother's children. His father loves him. And then you said to your servants, bring him down to me, that I may set eyes on him. And we said, the boy cannot leave his father. If he should leave his father would die. And then you said to your servants, unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you shall not see my face again. He's like, the only reason that he's here is because you made us bring him. That's it. There's no other reason why we would bring him. And even then, when we went back to your servant, my father, we told him the words of my Lord. When our father said, go again, buy us a little food, he said, we cannot go down. If our youngest brother goes with us, then we will go down. For we cannot see the man's face unless our youngest brother's with us. And your servant, my father, said, you know that my wife bore me 2 sons. One left me. And I said, surely he's been torn to pieces, and I have never seen him since. If you take this one also from me and harm happens to him, you will bring down my gray hairs and evil to Sheol. Therefore, as soon as I come to your servant, my father, and the boy is not with us, as his life is bound up in the boy's life, as soon as he sees the boy is not with us, he will die. And your servants will bring down the gray hairs of your servant, our father, with sorrow to Sheol. For your servant became a pledge of safety for the boy to my father, saying, if I do not bring him back to you, then I shall bear the blame before my father all my life. Therefore, verse 33, what is Judah's answer? Verse 33, take me instead. Let your servant remain instead of the boy as a servant to my Lord. Let the boy go back with his brothers. Who is this again? This is Judah. He's the one who said what before about Joseph? Yeah, hey, let's not just kill him. Let's send him with these slavers here, and we'll get a little coin for him, and let them do it. And he's kind of a ringleader to get rid of Joseph, and he's the one that says to Joseph now, take me instead. I'll remain here. Just let the boy go. And there is a substitutionary idea that's taking place, but it's not a life for a life as far as to Jacob, kill me instead of him. He's pleading with Pharaoh, let me take his place. Have they changed? Has Judah changed? What might you anticipate could be Joseph's response at this point? Just a guess, based on what we've said earlier. What might he do? He's going to weep. Because again, all of this that he's forgotten is now flooded back in. And he now sees the change in these people. They're not the same people that he's hated for years upon years upon years upon years and thought all of these things. He's put them through the paces, and he sees they are now changed individuals. And then he reveals himself to them. Now, we're pretty much out of time, so I'm going to kind of just really speed through some of this. He reveals himself to them, and what's their reaction?
Scared.
They're afraid. Why? All right. Why? All right, like I said, I said I'm going to speed through it, and then I start not. They're afraid, I think, because they expect Joseph to do what they would do. I mean, that's typically the way that things, you expect other people to act the way that you would act, and they would act with vengeance. And I think that's what we see here. They're scared, and Joseph lets them know that that's not going to be the case. The Pharaoh finds out who this people are, that this is the family, and so he has then the family brought down. They're given place in the land of Goshen. By the way, we're not going to look at it, but who is it, do you think, who's in charge of bringing the family down to Egypt? It's Joseph, right? He's the one that gets the family and brings them down? No. Who is it? Judah. Judah's the one who takes the reins and leadership of the family. He's the one who's come through this whole narrative, and he's the one who spearheads and organizes everything to bring them and get them settled in. You have here the times in which Jacob now sees his long thought dead son, sees his grandchildren. This is that moment, remember, when he crosses his arms and blesses Ephraim over Manasseh, and gives Joseph a double portion of inheritance. By saying, your sons are mine, he's not saying, you don't get them anymore, sorry, I want to claim them as mine. No, what he's saying is, Joseph, you get 2 portions. You get a double portion, which is kind of the way that he's always treated Joseph, right? But he gives them that double portion, by saying, your 2 sons, you have basically 2 sons there. When he dies, where is Jacob buried? Yeah, the cave at Machpelah, where Abraham and Sarah, where Isaac and Rebekah, and where who's waiting? Leah, his wife, so that he can be buried there with her. And then at the end of this story, we have that, when they're scared, as soon as their father dies, Joseph's only keeping them alive because of his father. So they're scared. Now that he's alive, or now their father's dead, he's going to be like, all right, now I'll get my revenge. And they come up to him, and they start fabricating. They lie to him. If you can imagine anyone from this family lying, by the way, they lie to him. They say, hey, don't forget, you weren't there, but Dad told us to not kill us when he died, just so you know. And Joseph's like, I was there, Joseph weeps again because they still don't understand his relationship to them. He's not after revenge. He's after their good. He wants to bless them. He said, you may have meant evil for me, but my God meant all of this for good, and I will take care of you. I'll take care of your little ones. I will set you up. I will help you. I will do everything that needs to happen. I'm not here to harm you. And then there's this promise made at the end. They embalmed him. What does that mean, they embalmed him? They made him a mummy, right? They mummified him. This is an actual Egyptian mummy in the Bible here. They mummified him. They embalmed him. And he made them promise that his bones would be taken with them when they left, which means, has he forgotten his past and he's fruitful in a brand new life? No. This is no longer representative of who and what Joseph is, starting a brand new life in Egypt. Now he says, you know what? I'm tied to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And when those promises that were made to Abraham come true, and y'all leave this place, however long it's going to be, you're taking me with you. And we'll find out that's exactly what they do. All right. We are out of time. Next week, I want to start, and if someone wants to, because I might forget this, if someone wants to write this down, Jan brought this up before, and I want to follow this through. I want to start, in fact, here's your homework. Find all the places in the story where it talks about clothing, Joseph's clothing, and see what is interesting from that. But we're out of time to do that tonight. All right. Thanks a lot, guys.